That's 3.
No, I did. That's 1 line. 2.
That's wrong.
But like I did it as like 1, 2, you know? You try. I feel like I gotta write the word triangle. Y'all are some... Bro!
Hello guys, welcome back. This is my 3rd video on Justine Passat, and I've got to be honest, she keeps giving me more reasons to talk about her. Another day of training camp, and once again, I'm genuinely impressed with what she's showing. It's getting to a point where I'd actually be surprised if she doesn't stick around in some capacity. Not even just making the day 1 roster, but at least getting a serious look or a deal matched for her. Now, if you've been watching the defensive clips coming out of camp, you already know what I'm talking about. I'll roll some footage here, but most of what they've been focusing on is defense, rotational drills, positioning, and overall team schemes. What stands out with Passat is her versatility. She's moving across multiple positions in these drills, and her size definitely gives her an edge. But it's not just physical, it's mental too. When they shift into full 5-on-5 defensive sets, something really pops: her communication. And that's not something you consistently see from everyone in camp. If you listen closely, especially when she's at the back line, you can hear her calling things out, directing traffic, staying engaged. Take a listen. And every single time there's an action, she's engaged. She's locked in. She's calling out switches. And by the way, for me, that's the biggest difference between her and KK. KK looks lost out there at times. Like, yeah, KK is more athletic, significantly more athletic, and way quicker on her feet. But what you're seeing from Justine Passat is different. She's playing like a true big defender around the basket, and more importantly, she's being vocal. She's directing traffic, communicating, making sure everyone's in the right spot, and that matters. And these are kind of important things to see in clips when it comes down to defensive communication, because defensive communication matters. No matter what anyone says, defensive communication, especially if you're somebody who's not the quickest on their feet and whose one flaw, by the way, is defense, it matters a lot more than people give it credit for. Nobody said there was going to be a flaw offensively with Justine Passat. That was never really the conversation. People were always talking about the defense. Defense could be an issue. Defense might take time. All of that. But, I'm sorry, if I'm going to be real here, if a player has elite length, is switched on mentally, and communicates well, they will be a good defender. It might not happen immediately, it might take time, but those traits translate. At different stages in their career, they will become a good defender. I've just never seen someone who has elite dimensions, stays engaged, and communicates properly be such a bad defender that they're unplayable. That combination almost always leads somewhere positive defensively. And by the way, she's huge. I think that part needs to be emphasized more. She is legitimately big. So I'm really interested to see, again, when it comes to Passat on the defensive end, how she looks in preseason. Because, I'm sorry, she's so large that even basic passing angles become more difficult for the offense. These are not easy passes to throw over or around her. So when people simplify it down to she's not ready defensively, I think that's missing context. She probably will be a good defender, and having a defensive coach like Brianne January, that matters. That's not a small detail. She probably will be a good defensive player by the end of the season, or at least trending strongly in that direction. And when you look at certain scenarios, like this one clip in particular, the rotation is very odd. You can see switches happening where they don't necessarily need to happen. There is no reason, for example, for KK Timpson to be in that exact position initiating that switch. They're already set defensively. There is no advantage being gained by switching two bigs in that situation. These are two bigs. There is no reason for that switch to occur, and now Raven Johnson has to scramble over and pick up the other big. That's unnecessary movement. But at the same time, they're playing a scramble defense. And in a scramble defense, the only thing that really matters is that by the end of the possession, everyone is covered and the offense is forced into a tough shot. That's the goal. You don't need it to be pretty, you just need it to be effective. And from every one of these clips that I'm looking at, I keep coming back to the same thought. Okay, the Indiana Femur have a player on their hands. They really do. And by the way, when I bring up Raven Johnson, I'm not saying Pissot is anywhere near that level defensively right now, because Raven Johnson is an exceptional defender, like truly elite on that end. What I'm saying is that Justine Pissot projects to be a passable defender, and that projection is important. Because when you combine that with everything else she brings, the size, the shooting, the mechanics, it changes how valuable she is. You're talking about a 6'4", 45% three-point shooter who can hit contested shots and has one of the purest jump shots you'll see. That matters. That absolutely matters. Having a player with that kind of shooting profile at that size, who also projects to be at least solid defensively, is extremely valuable in today's game. She's much longer than Katie Lou, much longer. And honestly, it doesn't even look like there's a trade-off in mobility. She moves fluidly. It's not like you're watching someone stiff or limited laterally. She looks comfortable. It's genuinely one of those situations where you're looking at one of the highest upside players on the roster. And I'd compare it to how I felt about KK Timpson last year. With KK, I kept saying the same thing. Because of her dimensions, her athleticism, her wingspan, you cannot let that player walk away for nothing. You just can't. Even if it doesn't work out, you take that chance. Because I remember thinking at the time, look, Jaylen Brown, for example, we knew what she was. She probably would have contributed more immediately than KK Timpson did, but she didn't have that same upside. And upside matters when you're building a roster. Now, I don't know if KK is ever going to fully realize that potential. Maybe she does in 2 or 3 years, maybe she doesn't. Right now, she's not at the level required. And for all we know, the same could be true for Justine Pissot. There's no guarantee she hits her ceiling. But when you're evaluating players, you look at indicators. And her dimensions, her shooting ability, and the fact that her court awareness is clearly there, those are strong indicators. This is not a player who looks lost. This is not someone who doesn't communicate. And that communication piece is huge. That's often what separates average defenders from good ones. So yeah, that's really the takeaway here. This is another video focusing on Justine Pissot, because a lot of the training camp footage we're getting is coming from bench units. And naturally, in those lineups, you're seeing more defensive possessions. That's where the evaluation is happening right now. And we already know Raven Johnson is a good defender. That's not something that needs breakdown after breakdown. It's established. What's interesting is that you're seeing a player who, in the WNBA draft, had a lot of teams pass on her, 24, 25 teams, and people were making assumptions. So there's no combine, so teams are guessing on measurements. She could have been 6'1" for all they knew. Players look bigger or smaller on film all the time. We've seen it before. Players listed one way, looking completely different in real settings. And then suddenly, she shows up, and it turns out she has near Stewie dimensions. She's actually around 6'4", with what looks like a near 7-foot wingspan, and now everything changes. Because if that information had been clearly verified pre-draft, if there had been a combine where she measured, ran drills, and showcased that shooting, you're talking about a completely different draft outcome. If you have a 6'4" player with a near 7-foot wingspan who likely dominates shooting drills, that player is not slipping that far. That's a first-round profile. Maybe not top 5, but definitely in that 14-16 range. That kind of range where teams start betting on upside in a serious way. So yeah, that's the video. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe.